Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Brothers and sisters, we're glad to inshallah start the first program of the special program for the month of Ramadan, and as it was announced, the program format will be informal, like an interview followed by an open Q&A with the audience. So brothers could adjust the volume on my microphone. Can you adjust it? Yes. So inshallah we start the program tonight. It was promised that we have Brother Suleiman tonight here at the program, but unfortunately his flight had a delay, so he will be arriving inshallah later to the center tonight, but we won't have him for the first discussion, which is about God, and if things allow, inshallah, he will have a talk for us about this same topic after the iftar, after the break, fasting, breaking the fast. So, inshallah, we'll have 14 topics for these 14 nights, and the first topic is, as announced, about God. And Brother Abdurrahim accepted to join us for this special program tonight. We really thank him that he made himself available, and inshallah we're going to have this meeting with him. So the format will be, inshallah, we'll be starting with a few questions, and then we will open up the opportunity for the audience. You all are welcome to join the conversation by asking questions, and Brother, inshallah, will help us find the answer to the questions that we have in mind. So, Brother, inshallah, we start the topic of God. First of all, we'd like to ask you, inshallah, you explain for us what is God? Why do you mean by God? And can you just do a very kind of a high-level introduction about the topic of God?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Unfortunately, our beloved Sayyid Suleiman Hassan could not be with us, but inshallah we hope that he will arrive here safely, and inshallah can continue on with all of the other topics. As you know, he is very high-level scholar, and he is more qualified to answer questions than this person here. But inshallah, I will do my best, and whenever I fall short, inshallah, we'll be able to have the Sayyid clarify, inshallah, hopefully, for those questions. The topic of about God is obviously a topic that is very prominent today, because many people have been asked over the past many decades to question about the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Question about who Allah is, why is He here, what did He do, how do we know we can prove His existence, and things of this nature. So we have, even today, the subject is continually addressed, and unfortunately, despite the many intellectual and rational proofs conveyed, as well as the many discussions given, we still have this conundrum, the question of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God's existence, and so forth and so on. So I wanted to just briefly mention about a few things related to this topic. First of all, when we talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the concept of God, we as human beings are always faced with this question: why am I here? Who put me here? Who put everything here? Why do we have the sun, the moon, the earth, the stars? How these things come into being? Who is the source of this? Because obviously we know, even in the science, you have an effect. You have to know its cause. And we know that when we look at various causes, even in our solar system and even in the earth and the rock formation, we always have a cause for these events that occur. Likewise, we are here. We didn't just put ourselves here. We didn't just say, okay, I have the mind state and understanding to be able to create myself. And not only that, to create others. We don't have this ability. So we are all left with this question about who put us here. And this is the reason why the topic of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is prevalent. In the history, with the exception of certain schools of thought, for example, amongst the Greeks and amongst other previous civilizations, most people did not have this question. It seems that for some reason, when we gain some aspect of knowledge about ourselves and about science and about matter and these things, that all of a sudden this question comes. So we first ask, when we talk about the concept of God, is can we tell ourselves why are we here and who put us here? And if so, can that be explained? Now, of course, there are many discussions one can have, and many intellectual discussions that are on different levels of people's knowledge. But simply put, we can easily, rationally come to a conclusion that someone put us here. Whether it was multiple entities that put us here, or one, someone put us here because we did not put ourselves here. Someone put that, the existence that we live in, here. And so therefore, when we look to the Quran, we find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered these questions for us. But sometimes the question before that is, how do we know we can prove this Quran is really something that can be relied upon? So then the question goes back to, how can we determine or convince ourselves that Allah exists? I hope inshallah through the discussions and the questions and answers we're able to come closer to that answer.
Thank you, brother. So, it's very interesting. Of course, so the cows, the main cows, as the main reason of the existence is a kind of an answer that, is well known by many basic people. Nowadays, the groups who call themselves as like atheists focus a lot on the question, basically questioning the characters of God, or the quality of God, or the knowledge of God, the way that are introduced by religions such as Islam. So basically, for instance, it's a very common argument that they say, okay, if God is knowledgeable, all-knowing, and all-merciful, and all-powerful, the way that you describe Him, then why is it that there is so much crime, so much issues going on in the world? Why is it that not just that bad people make bad decisions, that God does not protect the good people or innocent people? It even happens that some natural disasters basically occur and some innocent people basically die or are under pain, or there's so much basically going on. The children who are born and raised under so much suffering and poverty, basically. So the question is, okay, is God, so the argument that they have is that God, at least with the way that it's defined by those religions, that does not exist, because that God should do some social action that is not shown.
Well, there's a brief response, and then inshallah we can go further. First of all, we have to be very careful, because when we are trying to understand about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about God, about His Creator, we ourselves, with our own intellect and our own rationale, we cannot understand who this Creator is. Okay, we cannot. Therefore, we have to look in different materials. We have to look at what we have around us. And even we find that science cannot tell us much about Allah, except that if we have accepted Allah as being this all-powerful entity that we've just mentioned, then we have to recognize the perfection of this all-powerful entity. Because of the fact that as you look into science, we find more detailed perfection in the creation. Even in that sick individual, there are many processes going on in his or her body that is perfectly functioning in order for this person to be ailing, in need of medication, in need of help, and then eventually recovery from sickness. Even in science, we can see the perfection even in such disabled or weak individuals. you look at the subject of crimes on earth and about killings, and everyone's aware of events that took place yesterday night, in which we had killing on the first night of Shahr Ramadan. Very sad for the mu'mineen, but I believe that there is some wisdom behind that for us to discuss the issues that many people do not want to talk about, related to race and hate and things of that nature. But in any case, when we look at the world, we see a lot of things. We see good and we see bad. The proponents of arguing that there is so much violence and bloodshed, and even we can say right now there's so much injustice in the world. Even in our country, we cannot have justice. Okay, but we recognize that we have a lot of bad, but we also have to look at there's good. So when the one makes the argument, they cannot be one-sided in saying that, oh, there's only bad, people do wrong. And this goes back to, again, the question of why we are here, who we are. No one can tell you why, no one can give you this answer. No matter how much they study in the sciences, they cannot answer the question of why are we here. Therefore, we have to see, where can we give this answer? Because if we do not give this answer, then there's no purpose for existence. There's no purpose for life on this earth. In other words, we have to live very cynical lifestyles. Why work? Because there's no purpose. We have intellect to recognize the knowledge of sciences, but we are not using the intellect to recognize, is there something that can give me this answer? And that's where we come to religion. Now, one may say that that's such a cliche term to say religion, but in reality, everything that we have outside of what we ourselves have put together, we have from sources that claim to be from Allah or from this Creator. Therefore, we should, as human beings, investigate these sources. Okay? And again, for the individual who would argue that is God perfect, how is God perfect if such things happen? Then they should find in these sources imperfection, and they should find weaknesses, and they should be able to prove that even these sources which claim about the all-seeing, all-hearing, all-knowing God, they should be able to defeat this concept by defeating those sources. And then there's nothing else to look towards, because this has been defeated and proven to be false. Because if you can find weakness and imperfection, and you can find human beings playing with the text of God, or even just text that you can recognize this is not from God, it's from human being, it cannot be from a perfect individual, then we can say these texts can be written away as being false. And there's no need to discuss it anymore, thus can we find an answer. We will still have a cynical lifestyle because we cannot get that answer. We cannot get that answer. We have to make up something for ourselves. Now, when we talk about injustices, when we talk about things that affect individuals, whether it's the hurricanes or we just had a storm here and other things that kill people, we have to divide it into two different things. The first thing we have is those acts that human beings had no control whatsoever to prevent them. Okay? It was an act of, you want to call it an act of nature? These acts are things that we ourselves could not start or prevent. And then on the other aspect, we have to look at those things that we as human beings doing. For example, killing someone, murdering somebody, okay, is an act of an individual. And people can recognize and reason that this individual, because he has certain faculties which allow him or her to be able to make a choice, and then also act upon that choice, that this individual has to be accounted. No one can say, whether the punishment, whatever it may be, we're not talking about the punishment, but no one can say that the person who came into the church yesterday and killed 8 people, the 9th one died in the hospital, no one can say that this individual should be let go and should not be punished or accounted. Anyone who said they should not be accounted, we would say he's crazy. What's wrong with this individual to come with this thought? They have to, regardless of what the punishment is, they have to say that this individual, why? Because he has certain faculties that make him responsible. And this is the part where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, which I just said, we do not have any recourse to, but go back to the text. These quote-unquote revealed texts, we have to go to them and get answers. And as Muslims, we want to go to the Quran because we promote the Quran as being inimitable. The Quran is being free from error, free from whatever of imperfection and any falsehood. We claim this, we proclaim this, and therefore we want to go to the Quran. The Quran tells us. The Quran tells us the purpose of existence. The Quran tells us why we're here on the earth. The Quran tells us that our actions will be accounted for. Okay? As Allah says in the Quran, the verse escapes my mind, but we all kind of memorize this verse. وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَهُ. The one who does an atom's weight, and this is the word we use because we didn't know anything smaller than the atom, okay? But we can still use it for its intent. The one who performed an atom's weight of good, in the day of judgment, he will see it. He will see that good. And the one who has done an atom's weight of evil, he will also see it in the day of judgment.
So brother, yeah, I mean, maybe someone makes a bad decision, but how about others? How about the innocent people who are being punished because of it? So is that justified if like an innocent person loses his or her life or falls into a lot of pain because somebody else made a wrong decision? So is it a just system that God has created that people have such a power to make some others under so much pain or some injustice or unfair situation?
Yes. Well, as I said before, that the fact that we are responsible, we can all agree that we are responsible for our actions. You know, if I don't show up to work for a few days, what will happen? I'll be fired. Therefore, there's accountability even in our system. So therefore, that point again, related to the fact of we are all able to do things. We have powers. We can utilize those powers. Okay? Although there are limitations, and that depends on other aspects which are related in the Quran. Now, to address this question a little bit head on, we know that in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the angels, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة. إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة. Allah says, I am going to put on the earth a khalifa, a person who is a representative, a person who will be responsible over the earth, a caretaker over the earth. And then the angel asked, أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا. Are you going to make someone who will commit fasad in the earth, who can commit injustice in the earth? In other words, why are you making this system? Why are you creating something that can be like that? Apparently, they were aware of some knowledges. Allah says in the Quran, they go on and say, وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاء. And this individual, these people will shed blood. And then the angels say, but we, وَنَحْنُ نُصَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ. But we, see, the angels asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about this act, what He's going to do. The angel said, but we only worship and glorify your praise. And we hallow you. In other words, if you make us the viceroy on earth, there will not be this bloodshed and evil system. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the angels, إِنِّي أَعْلَمُ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. So Allah says, I know what you do not know. Allah didn't want to reveal to the angels what He knows. There's a plan.
Okay, what's that plan?
That plan, well, yes, the plan on the earth, as we mentioned in the Quran, we see another, again, I'm just making recourse to the Quran and we can address it and discuss it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, in Surah Al-Mulk, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Allah says in the Quran, He created death and life so that He can see by your deeds. He already knows, we said Allah's all-knowing, He already knows what your deeds are going to be. But He put this creation, this system, so that Allah will see who is the best of you indeed. And there are many things about this, about the fact that we are here on earth for a short period of time. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the same verses of Baqarah talks about Adam and the creation of Adam. Okay, do we come from multiple different individuals or we come from one single individual? Okay, so the Quran addresses the fact of Adam, this one entity, and his wife Hawa. Hawa, from these two, we have all the human beings on the face of the earth. Therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the system that He's created, has put us on this earth for a temporary period of time. I may be a person who, in the womb, I die in the womb and I'm still born. I do not have a chance to live on this earth. I may be a person who goes on the earth and dies in infancy. Many people live to old age it doesn't matter. When we look at all the numbers, we find that we cannot fix how it will be, but we recognize that this is part of the existence.
So that's a question. So let's say somebody doesn't even get born, or somebody just dies in a very childhood age, right? Very young age. So, I mean, that person didn't even have a chance to show if he's going to make good choices. Like if somebody makes murder, I mean, the person who commits a murder, let's say he has made bad choices, so God knows that he's a bad chooser, right? But he's not a responsible person. But the person who died, if he died at a young age, so he didn't even have a chance to basically show whether or not he will make good choices. What happens to that person? That's the question.
Yes. You know, in Islam, we find out that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we find that every single aspect, there's nothing really coincidental actually in the scheme of things. Everything has a purpose. We do not know the situation of this child. Perhaps this child is a child of parents who are disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Perhaps this child, because he's taken a death, and we have many traditions from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam which talk about some of these aspects, and therefore we can recognize that an individual, he died, but perhaps Allah has a plan for him to save his family. We don't know the scheme of things, we don't know all the details, but we recognize that, and we know from our Holy Prophet ﷺ that one who has died before reaching the state of accountability, his place will be in Jannah, inshallah. This is what we know, we believe in it. Okay, and the one who was living his life, he did not know about Allah. Again, each individual has a separate situation, and we have no right as a human being to judge that individual. We don't know what his or her reality will be. We do not know how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will deal with them. But we know that each individual has a specific set of endless, so to speak, possibilities, endless, so to speak, realities that each one has to be taken at its own value and not used in a general, broad sense. Okay, I saw someone die. Why didn't he let this person live? This is part of the purpose of life, part of the way of Allah's plan, the way Allah decided to have it.
So I guess you didn't go through the other cases where it's all beyond the human power. So something completely natural happens, a disaster, and then some people. So basically, I think you have the same explanation, right? So we don't know all the details, but God has a plan, and there is a cause, there is a reason for his actions. Is that right?
Well, the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Allah says in the Quran that in the Mateen, Allah says his plan is the way he's going to do this thing is Mateen, powerful, impenetrable. It cannot be broken. This plan of Allah, we ourselves will not be able to understand the plan, but we will see the plan of Allah unveil itself. The ones whose hearts are towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will start to see Allah's plan unveiled in various situations. And therefore, he will give that blessing to the believers to be able to see Allah's plan. Or even those people who are close to Allah, but they may not have reached Islam, but they believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore Allah may unveil his plan to those individuals so they see Allah's power in practice, because they believe in Allah, they believe in worshiping Allah. Therefore, we can say that this will be able to see that inshallah as we get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when we talk about the other aspect which I mentioned, which is that the things that we do not have control over, okay? These things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is responsible for it. Okay, and yes, on the one hand, we cannot say definitively. For example, we cannot say that the earthquake that happened Burma. Sorry, the name of the land is escaping my mind. Nepal. Sorry, that this earthquake in Nepal that killed in one night 8,000 people. Okay, something that killed more than double what the Saudi regime was killing over the many days, okay? With their own planes or with other planes, whatever it may be, that they were responsible for those killings and murders. But in the case of the earthquake, this is Allah's act. Allah did the act, He executed the act. We cannot say really why it happened. We can learn from it a little. We can see some things from it, but we cannot say, oh, it's because, some people might say, oh, it's because they don't believe in Allah. We don't know the belief of the people. Okay? We cannot judge anyone. We know that this is a very sad occasion, and we will utilize the human elements of mourning and sadness, okay? Even helping out by donating towards causes that would help the people. But we can never say what the real reason is. This is for Allah to know only. However, we recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it says in the Quran, that He will not be asked, actually. Allah will not be asked for what He does, but you will be asked for what you are doing. Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lets us know that there's a big plan in place. Because, you know, one of the things that happened when we saw this earthquake, we then saw hypocrisy. We saw hypocrisy right after the earthquake. We saw the Zionist regime sending aid to Nepal, although they're involved in the killings that's going on in Yemen. We see other countries, Western countries, United States, everyone calling out in support for an earthquake that was what they would consider an act of God, okay, or something outside their control, coming to help, but at the same time supporting the bombing of innocent people in Yemen. So we can learn from, when things happen, we learn from the hypocrisy of the people. We see how there are double standards, okay? On one country, we find that they provide aid towards this country. In another aspect, we find that no aid is being given. And no country is being blamed for the heinous acts. So we actually learn from these things. But we cannot, in its essence, because it is an act of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we cannot say the real reason behind it. But we can learn from it.
Right. All right, thanks. So I guess we would like to open up the conversation to the audience. If there is any question, anyone is interested to ask questions. If there's anyone on the sister side, we give priority, and then brother side. Any questions? Anybody wants to ask any question? No one on the sister side. Okay, so brother, you want to ask a question? I can give you the mic. Or if you can ask loudly, that would be fine.
Yeah. Actually, something came to my mind when you are asking the question about the infant child that didn't have the chance. So something came to my mind. Maybe it's the point of the life and the point that the existence of God is needed for that. I mean, if you are thinking of that child doesn't have any chance, so it's injustice, then maybe the existence of other world and God maybe bring the answer to that question. Because what we define the justice is not what's happening in this world per se. I mean, we consider another world, and we are saying that this child hasn't any fault or something, so he is not responsible for any action. So if the God in the other world treats him or her as a guilty person, that would be injustice. But I mean, as we believe that God would, I mean, put him in heaven or something, so that would be justified, that action, I think.
Yes, the thing, going back, brother, thank you for your comment on this point. That goes back to, again, the fact that we will say it again, whether we like it or not, no person, no individual of his own ability or capabilities will ever be able to satisfy the intellect of any human being on the earth about the purpose of their existence. We cannot do it. We have to resort back to revealed text, revealed scripture. Now, I'm going to relate an ayah to you of the Holy Quran, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and this is just to ponder over and think about, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. This is Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 213. That's the second chapter of the Quran. Allah says, and again, when we resort to revealed scripture, we are resorting to it because we have believed, at least, and if we didn't believe, but we are looking for answers, we find many people who are looking for answers, and they look to Quran and the Quran provides answers. Maybe the person didn't get answers, Allahu A'lam. But the reality is that only revealed scripture can provide answers, okay, to settle the heart and mind on why we are here and the purpose of existence. So we see in the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كَانَ النَّاسُ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً فَبَعَثَ اللَّهُ النَّبِيِّينَ مُبَشِّرِينَ وَمُنذِرِينَ. Okay, now there are different interpretations about what this means. It says that the people, okay, the human beings, the people in the earth, were one people, one group, okay? They were one ummah. Okay? Okay, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent and commissioned what? Nabiyyin, prophets, okay? So the Quran has given us an idea that we are human beings on the earth, and Allah is sending prophets. What are the purpose of these prophets? To be mubashirin and mundhirin, to be ones who give glad tidings of the hereafter, to give people the surety that there's a paradise, that there's rewards for good deeds, to let people know the purpose of existence. This is the purpose of the prophets. Okay, wa mundhirin, and also to warn. You know, today people, they don't want to warn about hereafter. You will not hear much talking about the hereafter as far as the punishments. Why? Because we think, oh, this is unjust. But in reality, when we look at it, we realize that accountability is key in all of this. So in accountability, these prophets have to also give warnings about disobeying Allah, warnings about committing injustice in earth, warnings against not even following the ways of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we find in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? That these prophets are not only mubashirin, but also mundhirin. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَأَنزَلَ مَعَهُمُ الْكِتَابَ بِالْحَقِّ لِيَحْكُمَ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ فِيمَا اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ وَمَا اخْتَلَفَ فِيهِ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَتْهُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتُ بَغْيًا بَيْنَهُم. Anyway, it can go on, it goes on, but the point is that not only did He bring the prophets to be what? To be bringers of glad tidings, bringers of rewards, and bringers of the beautiful things about life and the hereafter, but also the warning against punishment, against disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then at the same time, what? Allah has put a book, revealed book for these prophets to judge by, to rule by, to guide the people by a system that Allah wants on the earth. So we find in the Quran, Allah gives us this example of a reason for the purpose of our existence and the purpose of the prophets. So when we look at revealed text, we can see in the revealed text, we can find out what is the reason I'm here. Why does Allah allow this to happen and not this to happen, and so forth and so on.
Depending, basically, so for many people, of course, the Quran being the word of God is not yet proven. So answering the questions based on the scripture makes sense if you already prove that it's a word of God. So that's, that could be like a loop that, okay, so why, whether or not God exists or why did He do so? So but people are trying to find reasonable, basically, answers rather than accepting the answer based on what the scripture, certain scripture says. I think we have a topic on the Quran. It's on the third night. So we do like to talk about basically the evidence that, or the proof that this is the word of God. I don't want to fall into that question yet, but I think eventually it's reason, right? Even what the Quran says makes sense. It's not just we don't accept the word because if we don't have the knowledge, of course, we understand that we don't have the knowledge. So if God is all-knowing, then He will have plans that we don't know. So we can't really say that his action was unjust. As brothers said, maybe there is another part of the plan that is in the hereafter. So I think,
when we discussed earlier, and I meant to keep those other points we mentioned earlier on the table just so that we remember this as part of the discussion. Remember when we were discussing earlier, we were talking about the fact that the human being, cannot know really the purpose of life unless he or she gives themselves that answer, and maybe give that answer to others by imposition through governments and so forth and so on, or revealed text. So in other words, either it has to come from themselves, and we will never agree. Even today, no matter how much the claim of democracy is being talked about, we will never agree on the how to implement, if we really believe in that idea, implement a true system of democracy, or a system of the people. This is actually democracy, top-down system. If you want to talk about the system of the republic, then you would say the bottom-up, like which this nation was claimed it was built upon, where the people established their own nation from the bottom up. But in reality, we will never agree on the systems that have been put for us. And most people will say, yes, but at least we have freedom to do different things, we can do what we like. But everyone knows it's imperfect. Therefore, we recognize that either we, as human beings, will come with that answer, or it has to come from something else that's not from the human being. And that's why we talk about revealed text. Now, inshallah, Sulaiman will be able to address deeper about the Quran itself and perhaps its inevitability, perhaps also about how it can be proven. But for the individuals who want to know about Allah's existence, want to accept that this rational argument convinces me that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indeed exists and that He is one, that He has no partners, okay? There are various multifaceted discussions on this, many of which I'm not qualified to discuss, but I would say this, that for addressing the subject on the aspect of our existence, there are different steps. In the discussion of logic, we have different steps, but even we can find that even in the discussion of Aristotelian logic, we find that even this logic cannot convince them about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even this logic. However, when we look at utilizing the rational ability that the human beings have, we all have this rational ability to be able to think, and we have those basic principles that we can start with. One of the basic principles is that those things that are considered, I'm forgetting the term it's called, but it translates to being those things which are, to some extent, no-brainers. Those things you don't have to prove, you don't have to argue for them. Those things that are obvious, those things that are so simple. For example, in our physical world, we know that, for example, one of these ideas is that, for example, if you have something that's a whole, this simple logic, something that's a whole is greater than its parts. Its parts can never at one time become greater than its whole. Okay, so that's an example of this type of thing. Or the fact that one can say, okay, yes, we see that actually there were mistakes in the past because of our lack of scientific knowledge, but we can see how, at least from a simple level, that we have a day and a night. Okay, we can see the systems that function throughout our existence. So these are some things that tell us, but we find that the Quran actually doesn't want to give us the answer directly in these senses. For example, we find in the Quran Allah does not reveal ayat trying to prove His existence. Okay, we don't find this in the Quran.
There are very few, right?
We find in the Quran Allah.
For example, it says if there was more than one God, then there would be corruption.
Yes, this is about the idea of more than one God, not about the proof of His existence or the existence of a God. Okay? In the proof of the existence of in the discussion of the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah even asked the people, even in those times, the pagan Arabs, about the heavens and earth, who did this? They will say Allah. They had an understanding that there is this Allah who did this. They have this understanding. Now, besides that, we find that in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to use, and myself to use, our rational judgment based on what He's provided for us. For example, in the creation of the heavens and earth. Okay? وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ, and the alternation of night and day. The ayat لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. So Allah says, for people who have deep knowledge, it requires deep ponderance. Allah wants you, the human being, to think, to look, to rationalize, to look at the systems of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at the creation. We find from Imam Ali alayhi salam when he says that if you want to know about Allah, you have to look at His creation. The creation will tell you about Allah. Now, some will say, well, you know what? I look at things even more detailed. Well, let's look at the creation more detailed. Allah doesn't want to give us that answer like that. Because we have rational ability. We have ability to think. We have ability to come to some conclusions. But ultimately, it all goes down to the fact that even, let's say, I came to a conclusion that there is this creator who's all-powerful. Okay? Because people can come to this conclusion. It's still going to beg the question, how do I know what has He sent me to tell me how to live and what my life is about? Okay? And again, it's going to go back to either something I create for myself and impose on people, okay, or keep to myself, or reveal things.
Right. Okay, so again, if there are any questions in the audience, we welcome your participation in the discussion. So, brothers, sisters, anyone wants to ask any question? I have some questions on this, but your questions are our priority. If you have anything you want to add, any comments, anything, you're very welcome. Okay,
alhamdulillah, all of us here, we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some of us may have questions because of different issues that have come about. Maybe questions they never asked in the past, but others have asked.
Right.
But we would hope, inshallah, if we eventually broaden the discussion in which we have people who can actually ask questions that they themselves are having doubt about.
Yes.
And we can get their understanding of where they're from.
So I want to move on to the question of, just relating God to our day-to-day life. As Muslims, we have some practices, like we have to pray, we have to fast in Ramadan and all that. So, but it doesn't necessarily basically mean that we are in a very personal relationship with God. Many people do practice all these basically actions, but at the end of the day, it's more like doing a job that needs to be done, even while praying, performing the prayer, or thinking about everything but God. Or, they just do the form is done. It looks like people are praying, but it's not necessarily a personal relationship. I mean, I had some discussion with some of my friends. For them, it seems even sometimes, maybe it's not good to say that like that, but God was more like a distraction for their life rather than a motivation. So they, especially in the modern society, you have a lot of, and everything's kind of predictable. If you're on a decent path, you're studying, you're going to work, everything is like there's a system there, and then all of a sudden, okay, you have to pray. Okay, you have to stop things and go to do prayer. And even in this country, it's not like there's a prayer room is available everywhere. So it's like, for some people, it sounds like even like a distraction. So the question is, but Islam says God should be the motivation. So He should be the reason for us doing things. And even we're doing all these prayers, but it doesn't necessarily establish that personal relationship. So my question is, there is two questions here. One is, how to turn God from that distraction to the motivation. I mean, I'm using that term, but I'm not saying it's the best way to say it, but that's what some people say. Then the second question is how to really develop that personal relationship with God, rather than basically performing some basically just formal actions without really the spirit, maybe. Yeah.
Yes, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He revealed to Musa when He said, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وأقيم الصلاة لذكري, and establish salat for my remembrance, to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so when we look at that, we should think about that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has shown us through the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Ahlul Bayt how to perform the salah, from the beginning to the end, from the niyat all the way till the taslim. We've learned all these things, we memorized it, we act upon it. Now, how do I have remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? One of the things too, and we can also look online, they have a course. It's actually a set of lectures by Sheikh Rizwan Arastu, which talks about concentration and prayer, and it addresses these issues in more detail. You can find it online. But one of the things is that when we establish the prayer, okay, the prayer is for the most part recited and done in Arabic, and then there are different movements as well. One of the first steps before to get closer to Allah, to develop this relationship, is to understand what we are reciting. Okay? To understand what we're reciting. What are we saying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so many times? When we recite Surah Al-Fatiha, what are we saying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And then how do I, in doing that while I'm praying, have that concentration on what I'm saying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? These, I believe, that these will help us to develop that relationship. As far as the distraction, I think sometimes actually it can end up being that the person wants to pray the salat, but there are too many distractions preventing him from praying the salat. So it's both sides, Now, if a person believes that the salat is a distraction, then that means that many discussions that could be presented, or the individual should learn about certain things that will help them get closer to Allah by understanding really what salat is all about. Is it just a set of movements that are done, 5 and recitations that are done 5 prayers a day, or is it more than that? This has to be in that type of discussion so that a person starts to see, inshallah, with his and her sincerity and his desire or her desire to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make them want to be close to Allah and then they will eventually, with Allah's help, because only Allah's help can help with the person to change and grow, that they will consider the salat actually is dear to them, that they want to pray it. They will find themselves looking to pray the salat on the time, but there may be distractions preventing them from performing the prayer. But they will nevertheless try their best to make sure they perform their duties to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within the time periods that Allah has allotted for us. So I think that in this scenario, an individual has to really revisit the purpose of the prayer, why they're praying.
Okay, can you talk about that purpose? Do we pray, do we worship God because He may punish us and after we die? Is it the reason for us? Do we have to think about God because if we die and then He will all of a sudden put us inside a lot of fire and burning and punishment and pain, and that's what we should be scared of, so we should pray Him? What is the reason for it?
We find it in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses many reasons for performing the salah. And I think that the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses these reasons, as opposed to saying, okay, if you don't perform salah, you're going to hell, that it wants to give us an incentive to pray. What am I going to benefit from the prayer? We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the salat, that Allah says that this prayer, the salat, okay, will prevent one, will forbid one, will stop one from what? Doing fahsha and munkar. They will not do the disgusting, heinous sins, nor will they commit evil deeds. So a person who is performing the salah, okay, with the understanding of what the salah is for, and also understanding who they're praying to, inshallah, with Allah's help, that will prevent that individual from performing these evil deeds. We commit sins all the time, so Allah can save us from committing the sin. That's one aspect of the salah. We also have other purposes of the salah, many which I personally cannot go into my lack of knowledge on the subject. But the many purposes of the salat allow us to have the incentive that, you know what, I want to get closer to Allah, I want to get closer to the one who created me, the one who chose me, the one who designed me.
What happens if someone gets close to God? Why is it important to be close to God?
Well, kind of to go back to your first point, which was that we have, it's well known the tradition of Imam Ali alayhi salam, when he mentions about the people are 3 types when it comes to the salat, salat, and the best of those people are the ones who pray because Allah deserves this prayer. Okay, he doesn't pray because he wants to get Jannah, because that would be the aspect of someone who is, a business person, the one who's a slave, the one who he's just preventing himself from the hellfire. Therefore, the person who recognizes Allah, and this goes back to the original topic about proving Allah's existence. When one recognizes Allah's absolute power, that Allah is all powerful, all knowing, He's the creator, He chose each and every one of us individually, designed us especially as He chose in the perfection He's given us, and then we want to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We want to get closer to Him, and worship is that way to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Worship is that way to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Worship is that way to actually build that relationship that makes us live in a life of always striving to be positive individuals, always striving to live in the way Allah wants. And that also includes doing the things that most people are scared to do, which is standing up for justice and being against injustice and being against those things which causes very evil things in the earth that we are continually witnessing.
Alright, I want to open up the opportunity. We are getting close to the hour Azan, so there is not much time left. We did really like to have more contribution from the audience. We hope we have more contribution in the future nights. But if you have any questions, any comments from you that you might want to mention here, is there anything that you have? Don't be shy. I mean, if you really don't have any questions, that's fine. But if you have a question, please just stand up and say, don't be shy to bring up your question or comment. Okay, so I guess we're close to the time of Azan. I think Azan is like 8:40, right? So we have about 10 minutes. Let me, because I have got some questions that were sent to me before. So I want to I don't know if we completely discussed this about what's God's plan for humankind, and if you have any additional comment about that, but
we addressed it a little in the beginning.
Yes.
From Surah Al-Mulk, as well as the Surah Al-Baqarah, Ayah 213, about the purpose of... Yes,
to see who does the best.
Also the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the prophets as brings the purpose of all these 124,000 prophets.
Right.
And we, of course, the Quran is our attestation of this reality.
Yes. Yes. So, okay, the question is how to verify that you are on the right track. You know, I've seen people questioning themselves, or just, kind of being in the doubt whether or not what they're doing is right. So they have the good intention. They really do want to make the right choice, but they just have the doubt whether or not they are making the right choice. So there are situations that the right choice is not very clear, even though we might have some general rules, but in that specific, basically, under that specific condition or circumstances, it's not very obvious for them whether or not they know what the right choice is. Or in general, they want to know whether or not they're on the right track. What is your comment about this question?
Yes, well, first of all, when it comes to the right track, you have a few aspects of that. One is about what is the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our life. Now, obviously, we all have access to the ulama as far as their masail al-fiqh. So therefore, of course, we have to first, if we want to be on the right track, we have to make sure that we are fulfilling our wajibat and staying away from that which Allah has forbidden for us. So we have to know that. It actually requires all of us to be knowledgeable in these two aspects of our faith, because one will not be accepted. It will not be accepted for one to have this ability to gain this access of knowledge and not know about it, and not try to seek about it. So if we want to know we're on the right track on one aspect with regards to what Allah has commanded and forbidden, we must resort to the text for that, so we know that we are fulfilling our obligations. Every single individual, when he reaches the age of taklif, is responsible to make sure that he is ensuring that he is fulfilling his obligations in his faith. That's the first aspect. The second aspect of those things which really, there's no explicit text about it, but again, we resort to the ulama for that. And that requires that we have the ability to ask those questions. So if there's some situation, for example, we have different aspects of our life here that are affecting us. We don't know whether we should do one or the other. Some of these may fall in the realm of that which you are allowed to choose. Some of them require you to give the response or an answer from a qualified mission. So therefore, in any aspect, if one is making sure that he or she is fulfilling their responsibility to the best of their ability, then the only thing they can do in that aspect is they can have a balance of a level of hope and fear with regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept his a'mal or a'mal, that he will accept their deeds, okay? And that balance of fear from being punished for his actions. We are not allowed to be, to have to have despair from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is absolutely forbidden. It's one of the major sins. We as you see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala letting us know who He is, letting us know our responsibilities. Even He gives us certain conditions. We are not allowed to break that barrier. So therefore, we are not allowed at all, ever, as a Muslim, as a believer, to ever despair in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But as our Imams have taught us, we have to have a balance of fear and hope. This balance, inshallah, will keep us on the right track, and that's the best that we can do, inshallah.
Well, thank you very much, brother. I hope we have been discussing some interesting questions. Maybe some of the questions were not basically given the best answer, maybe some of them were, but it's really a personal decision eventually whether or not what is the right, it's personal understanding. But the purpose of this meeting is not necessarily to answer all the questions about that, but it's more about bringing up questions and the opportunity to think about them. Alhamdulillah, brother, even though it was like a late notice, but alhamdulillah, I think you had a good overview of some of the answers to these questions. But of course, it's an open question for everyone, and the life is really a journey for everyone and personal. So I guess it's getting close to the time of Ramadan. Again, regardless that Suleiman was supposed to be here today, but we missed him because of a delayed flight, because of basically circumstances that are beyond control of us. But inshallah, we will have him tomorrow in the program. So thank you very much for your basically attendance. We hope to have more contribution in the future nights by you, by asking questions. We have the topics, we have announced the topics, there are flyers outside. You could basically look at the topics. We do invite you to think about them and bring your questions, inshallah, during the meeting. You're also welcome to send us your questions beforehand. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, and inshallah, it will be a wonderful Ramadan, which just ended first day today. It's first day today. So if you do still many prayers, inshallah, we end up the program.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Oh Lord, please give us the good of this life and the good of the hereafter and save us from the hellfire. برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. By your mercy, all the most merciful mercies.
اللهم صل على